This is the quick agenda for us. I help you understand. We've talked about the research, what we will cover. ये 6 weeks के plan में क्या cover होगा, खाली 6 weeks का support होगा या और भी support होगा. And we're going to focus, use this exam का acronym. Okay, E starts for establish a plan. So how do we support your child to establish a plan? What will we do in that 6 weeks so that they can execute with focus? What tools, techniques, strategies we will help them work through? How do we help them manage their own anxiety, own pressure? Like Binal was saying, sometimes like everyone's is making the child feel acha आप 10th mein aa gaye ho. 10th has become like a quote key word ki now you're in the 10th standard. Most of your child must be in 10th standard in this room, but even if you're not in 10th standard, the exam pressure comes in. The last M is how do we maximize performance. So कैसे मैं smartly study करूं, ना कि I just focused uh, so hard that I'm not able to balance my study and work. I think that's what we will do in our next 15-20 minutes. We will take you through some of the materials, what we will make them experience, and we will also seek any questions you may have as we move along. So just want to pause here and see if there are any questions, thoughts on what we have discussed so far. Anything you like to ask a question? I'm happy to answer that at this moment. You can unmute yourself if there are anything, or you can put it on the chat also. Chat पे भी आप अपना question लिख सकते हैं any point in time.
Yeah, we can continue, Rahul. I think.
Yeah. So I'll just take you through one example of a student who we recently, I mean, last year I worked with him. Just an example of how, and I realized that, we do a lot of individual work, I and Binal, and we realize कि how do we then impact group wise, because individual तो हम कितने ही लोगों को कर सकते हैं, group में करें तो कितना impact आएगा. So this is just one testimonial I want to just share with you.
I've been talking to Rahul sir, and his sessions have been really helpful. He's taught me many techniques on how to overcome all my problems, and at the same time he's made my behavior even better. My mind before the board exams would be completely about my result, but after talking to him I was more focused on about what I can do now so that my board exams will go better and not think that much about the results. So yeah, his sessions were good and they helped me a lot. I've been talking.
Yeah, and I think he just got his result, and he really worked hard in the last 6 months, or not 6 months, 3 months, I would say, and I think he's been fairly successful in his outcome. So what we're doing in the 6 weeks program is one of the things, which is how do you manage yourself? What do you do to self manage? Because a lot of times our intention is to work, but we become lazy or ninda. So one of the technique which we help in students is Pomodoro. I don't know if some of you may have heard. Very powerful. मैंने जहाँ पे भी use किया मेरे students के साथ, they have loved it, and they realize suddenly they become more focused. Their distractions are reduced. Because क्या है इसमें, you give yourself 25 minutes time and you do nothing. You keep your phones away, you keep everything away. You don't get up till 25 minutes and then take a 5 minutes break. And after some time, you increase that to 50-10, 15 minutes together, 10 minutes break. Then you increase it to 90-10, 1.5 hours and then 10-minute break. So like that is the cycle you create so that you can build your focus, and then you put your timetable saying that how many Pomodoro it will take. This is just an example of a person's timetable, and he's written, okay, there'll be 3 Pomodoro, 4 Pomodoro, which means 4 25-minute cycle I will take to complete this chapter or complete this work. One of the key things we have seen is procrastination, because it seems so challenging. Subjects which I don't enjoy, उसको तो मुझे start करने का मन ही नहीं करता, and a lot of parents tells us that. And how do we break down those challenges? Sometimes it's about students understanding, how do I do that? I don't understand from the lectures of the class. I remember one of the students said कि मैं chat GPT पे उसका analogy try करता हूँ, मुझे thermodynamics नहीं समझ में आ रहा था, and through discussion he came up with the idea. So मेरे को thermodynamics पढ़ने का मन ही नहीं कर रहा था. So then what I did is I said, tell me how give me cricket example of thermodynamics and help me understand. So ChatGPT, he asked that question, and suddenly ChatGPT gave a very simple answer of how IPL match is working and what are the steps and how thermodynamics has a connection to that. And suddenly started having love to that subject, right? So you have to identify 3 parts. We often tell our students saying that, hey, what are the challenges which is coming, which are preventable? So can you identify those? What issues you can minimize? Okay, I get distracted very quickly. How can I minimize that? And some things which I believe is necessary. I have to go and do a chess game, or I have to go and play one video game. One video game I'm going to play so that I feel rewarded, and then I come back into the aspect. So as parent, we should be aware what are the areas he will prevent, what will he or she will minimize, and what is necessary. I think we all onboard each other as a group, then it becomes much easier for the parent also and the student to take charge of himself, right? So these are some of the exercises I'm telling you. One of the key things I do, I mean, work with students is identifying the goals. This I believe it's such a powerful thing, which is simple thing to identify कि मुझे क्या करना है, कब करना है, और क्यों करना है, and that comes from them. And lot of time I've seen parents tell me कि वो timetable तो बनाता है लेकिन follow नहीं करता है, which also is okay, because what happens is you become unrealistic in planning your time. You think कि मैं बहुत कुछ भर दूंगा, और जब करने जाता हूँ तो मुझे लगता है अरे ये हुआ ही नहीं. So at least I'm 60%. I'm speaking to a lot of students right now. They are 60% successful. Then they increase to 75. They increase to 80, which is great. You know, at least I'm now 80% successful, closer to what my goals I had planned. तो पहले तो मैं कुछ भी रैंडमली पढ़ता था. मुझे केमिस्ट्री पढ़ने का मन कर रहा है तो मैंने 15 मिनट केमिस्ट्री पढ़ लिया, फिर बंद कर लिया. आई नाउ पिक्ड अप हिंदी. आई हैव नो correlation and I just go randomly, and that doesn't work, right? And also along with this, and I love this quote which says setting goals is the first step in turning the invisible into visible, because brain ko, they like to be specific. Brain doesn't like vague information, and that's why it's very important to put. I tell a lot of my students, and a lot of my students do vision board. They actually create a vision board, and they identify, okay, how much I'm gonna do in 10th, what is my percentage, what subjects, how much I will get in WhatsApp, and then they work backwards. Yeah, in first test, how did I do, how far I am come. And sometimes these conversations with the third person, like neutral persons like us, it makes a huge difference rather than just talking to the parents, because parents may have sometimes, I mean, sometimes we have a tendency to become biased in our style. So third person से बात करने से I think काफी फर्क पड़ जाता है. So I think some of these exercises we make them do in the group sessions, and that's what we are saying. We're planning for the 6 weeks conversation. Some of these exercises we'll make them do. I'm just giving you a glimpse of that. One of the other things which is a lot of students do is hard work. Even I have seen schools don't talk about it, tuition classes don't talk about it. There is an art and science of learning. And very often this is not looked at, and people are just rote learning, they're not realizing. And there's a scientific principle behind. Dr. Habingus is very well known in this forgetting curve. उन्होंने कहा है कि अगर हम जो भी चीज पढ़ते हैं हमें इमीडिएटली याद होगा, एंड काफी बार हम लेसन्स भी लेते हैं एज ए पेरेंट. हम वो सुबह दोपहर को पढ़ रहा है फिजिक्स का सब्जेक्ट, हम 5 बजे उसको बोलेंगे ओके लेट मी टेक अ टेस्ट, तो इजीली रिमेंबर होगा क्योंकि अभी पढ़ा है, अभी आप पूछ रहे हो. लेकिन अगर आप वो गैप देते हैं 1.5 डे के या 2 days के, then what will happen, the brain will get the pressure to recall. And the best way the brain works is encode, associate with the imagery or a mind map, and retrieval में space होना चाहिए. You cannot have retrieval immediately. अगर आप immediate retrieve करोगे information, आपको brain को धोखा होगा कि हाँ मुझे याद हो गया. But अगर आपने time दिया, 2 दिन का समय दिया, then you will not be able to remember fully. But the good news is brain likes to know that is this a long-term memory item. And if it's a long-term memory item, only he will come to know it's a long-term memory item if you recall again and again. And if you recall again and again in the space, the brain will put that into long-term memory. And हमें एक टेस्ट करना है यूनिट टेस्ट का, उसका हमारा impact तो actually will come in the final exams as well. You're not just studying for the unit test, but even for the final exam. So what's the point if you're cracking the unit test, but you have to redo and remember the same thing which you have learned into unit test because you've forgotten that, right? So you're wasting time and wasting energy. And how can you ensure your memory, you work along how the memory works? So I think some techniques, simple techniques, which is well-known scientific techniques, if you operate using them, I think you can learn better and become more sharper. I think that's what it is. Just sharpening the edge is what is required in programs like this. And the other thing which impacts them a lot is the self-image. उनको लगता है कि मैं नहीं कर पाऊंगा, या I'm not good enough, or overconfident, or they are distracted with their peers. They get worried with how the peer will, they're in another world altogether. Study is not what they are focusing on. Self-esteem is very, very low. So we help them boost that as well. And that's the other thing which a lot of students do, and I've seen they get so demotivated by labeling themselves because they're focusing on the results, not the effort, like the testimonial which was saying. So आप अपने आप को label कर दोगे तो आपको लगेगा मैं maths में तो कभी अच्छा बन ही नहीं सकता. So that label is so strong because science is not cup of tea for me. And that's a wrong information which they are feeding themselves. Sometimes these feeding they also do with their friends. कि कोई फ्रेंड ने उनको मैसेज नहीं किया तो कॉन्स्टेंटली वो रुमिनेशन ओवर थिंकिंग मोड में रहते हैं, तो पढ़ाई का दिल कहाँ से करेगा. मतलब आप वो थॉट में ही हैं. आप वो जोन में ही जा रहे हैं कि आप कोई आपका फ्रेंड या किसी ने आप जिससे एक्सपेक्टेशन थे, जिससे कुछ झगड़ा हो गया, कॉन्फ्लिक्ट हो गया, सो आई एम डिस्ट्रैक्टेड, आई एम नॉट एबल टू फोकस एट ऑल. सो हाउ डू यू ब्रेक दिस साइकिल in helping them manage their self message? So we do an activity of what are the self message, tune into your self message, because human being is the only creature which can observe their own thoughts. वो creatures नहीं कर सकते, birds नहीं कर सकते. And can we equip our child to understand what kind of thoughts we have, and can we manage them? And the good news is we can manage it, and we help them train that. And the other thing I have seen most of the students do is they don't sleep. Yeah, I think sleep is the most common thing, and I have seen lack of sleep can have a huge impact on your memory. And I'm sure parents, you also believe that, but आपके पास में कभी-कभी control नहीं होता है to influence your child. And I think we help them think about how do you make the best use of sleep. I remember one 9th standard student told me that अगर आप कोई भी मेरे क्लास के एक आंसर शीट देखोगे, and आप उनके आंसर शीट में एक line hogi, and I'll show you how the line she described me, and I was shocked when she told me this. She said you'll see a sudden line, लोग आंसर लिख रहे हैं and suddenly ऐसे एक dash line आपको दिखेगा हर एक के आंसर शीट में. मैंने बोला ऐसे क्यों दिखेगा, मतलब what do you mean ऐसे दिखेगा, why? So she said, you know what, people don't sleep in the night because they are a whole night they are studying, and paper लिखते लिखते वो आंख झोंका आ जाता है. आप पेपर लिख रहे हैं और एक नींद आई तो आपका पेन आपके हाथ से छूट गया एंड एक लाइन ऐसे लग जाएगी. So I was like, wow, is that true? And she said most of the 9th standard student experience this kind of thing. So imagine in 9th, May people are not sleeping just before the exam. So how do we ensure? So here we talk about mindfulness exercise. We talk about how do you do activities so that you can use the focus and concentration. So one of the interesting exercise which we talk about in the program is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I think I have a slide of that. Let me see if I can show you. Yeah. So this is a slide which is a quick grounding exercise. मैं ज़्यादा overthink कर रहा हूँ, मुझे नींद नहीं आ रही है. So how can I calm myself? How can I calm my body and my mind? This is a simple technique. Likewise, there are a lot of techniques which we will help them to understand and work along with it, right? And this is not just a 6 weeks plan. We also will work with the child and the parent closer to the exams. So in last year, I've done work with a lot of students in December. We out in January. What do you do? How do you create 1 month before the exams? How do you create a cultivate champion mindset? Because as closer to our time, वो डर की भावना तो आने लग जाती है, right? Obvious है. कितना भी आपने prep किया. So how do we work with them? How do you plan subject wise approach? कि मुझे अभी last month में क्या पढ़ना चाहिए? Last minute prep में क्या करना चाहिए? How should I do in the week of the exam? जिस दिन छुट्टियां हैं, कोई papers, and most of the exams timetables are out. Next year का आपका 10th का timetable already आ चुका है. So what subjects I should study by when? On the day of the holidays, which subject I should pick up. So they plan that, and I've seen last year students plan that very well, and that really helped them manage their anxiety, right? So these are all what I just gave you a quick glimpse of what we will cover in the 6 weeks plan.